worst day on Wall Street since the crash of 1987.
Traders here working the phone say a lot of their customers are freaked out.
Just broad-based declines across all of the major technology sectors. Apple's under pressure, Yahoo down 8.5%, Cisco 6.5%.
The definition of middle class can vary depending on the various factors such as location, family, size, personal circumstances. Based off a statistic, around the income is around $56,000 per year. CNBC stated that households are now spending $433 more per month due to inflation. That is now an additional $5,000 the average American will be spending per year. That's not the issue. The issue is that we already have nothing saved. The average baby boomer, which is from 1946 to 1964, has only about $166,000 away for their retirement. So for many of these baby boomers who you were promised to work 40 years, you would get a retirement to live out your final decades, can't. Now, why is that? They wanted to spend their money instead of saving. But why is that? And what will happen to the next generations to come? Well, today we're breaking all that down. So this is a little bit off topic of my usual videos that I create, because I'm bringing in a theory that I personally have. I like to think of myself as a little bit of a historian because I generally just enjoy looking back at history to see the similarities in our current day, and in all honesty, I have learned a lot from doing this. I think to understand the start of this though, we actually need to take a step back to reveal what life was like before the baby boomers and see who was in the generation that raised them. Now, the ones who raised them just so happened to wind up being raised in none other than the Great Depression. Again, I'm taking you back almost 100 years so you can see what the future just may hold. Now, I'll go into another video about basically what happened in the Great Depression and why it happened, but I really just want to focus on the impact that it had for many of these children. So for many of them growing up during the Great Depression, it instilled just a deep sense of frugality overall. They learned how to save their money carefully, to make do with what they had, and to avoid wasteful spending. So, like, here's a quick little example. How many of your grandparents or people that you knew in that decade had gardens growing up? Well, and I always never understood that as a kid. Well, for many of these now grandparents, having those gardens literally saved their lives. But nobody thinks about how that affected these kids at the time. So fast forward about 25 years to this new generation of baby boomers. The baby boomers did not go through this, so they have a different view. During this time, while the baby boomer generation is growing up, they have the white picket fence. It's the American dreams: 2 cars, 2 kids, and a pension waiting for you at the age of 65. Which, put a pin in that actually, the age of 65. The average lifespan was around 70 years old at the time. Now it's much closer to 80. And as technology increases, I honestly can see that by the time our generation grows up, it could be closer to 90 or even 95. So just remember that thought as well. But let's keep going. This generation coming up, they did not have this traumatic upbringing that their parents had. They did not grow up working in the fields like their parents did. They had the white picket fence. They wanted the white picket fence, but they just wanted the house a little bit bigger. And they wanted the car to be just a little bit nicer, and actually maybe another car as well. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, this is literally a generation that accumulated more money than any other generation at the time. Well, that's perfectly fine, except they experienced 2 very big hits to their bank account during these times that the previous generation did not. The previous generation was a saving generation. This generation, the baby boomer generation, was a spending generation. When the dot-com bubble burst or the 2008 financial crisis hit, they lost a lot and they already weren't saving. So how does this affect me though? And how can I avoid this? Let's fast forward to 2008. This millennial generation should be coming up. This is the second largest generation behind the baby boomers. They will be the perfect individuals who can keep up with their social security to let these baby boomers retire. These millennials, in 2008, they were graduating college. So when all of them are coming out, they're in the worst recession since the Great Depression. This is not a good time to enter the workforce. So what ends up happening is that they aren't able to start their career path. They have to go be baristas, and they're already sitting on more student loans than ever before. Now, when they get started, they're potentially 4 or 5 years behind. And now they're not equipped to take on those jobs that the baby boomer generation is about to leave behind. They haven't reached that high enough field of income or expertise. And the reason for it is because when they were graduating college, they had to put their lives on pause until the economy came back. So in other words, we're doomed. Baby boomers do not have a retirement, and the millennials do not make enough and still hold a ridiculous amount of student debt. We are now in this inverted triangle because soon we will have more elderly than young people, and as millennials, they're not having any kids either because they can't afford them. So this cycle, in my opinion, is eventually going to collapse on itself, and when that happens, it's going to be bad, like really bad. So there is a silver lining though. Remember, history repeats itself, like I said at the very beginning of the video. Have you ever heard the phrase, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times? This is absolutely true, and I can give you a slight example of what could come. The viewer for me is between 18 to 30 years old, and you're interested in finance and growth and entrepreneurship. Well, I was 9 years old during 2008. I did not necessarily understand what was going on, but I knew there were tough times going on and a lot of people were stressed. And because of that, I realized that even though my dad was amazing at his job, if the overall company doesn't do well, the safe and secure job wouldn't keep him. And I really think this may be why entrepreneurship is so huge in our generation, because we were told growing up to get a safe and secure job, but for a lot of kids, they saw their parents stressed during these times, and that safe and secure job didn't seem so secure. Again, this is literally just a theory that I'm beginning to see similarities in. So where do we stand here? Well, we know something bad is probably around the corner. This is what I'm gonna do, and I hope people watching this will be doing the same thing. I'm gonna be saving. I'm going to be trying to find extra areas of income and quite literally build a fund for strictly when hard times hit, I have money to invest in, and I have emergency funds ready. But here's what I would do is you honestly want to start getting some side jobs, working late, saving the bonuses, find some way to earn a few $100s or $1,000 and literally set it aside specifically for investments. I literally did that a few weeks ago. I invested into a business that I saw that I had profitability in, and I had cash on hand. It's gonna bring me passively a few $100s per month. Again, I'm not a millionaire. I'm not a finance guru or anything like that. But what I do know is that the only thing that we know is that we're in some pretty wild times right now. And usually when wild times happen, very rarely does it end well. But like in the proverb, hard times create strong men. So when there are hard times, be prepared.